Happy continued holidays and welcome to the Orangebloods Modcast. I'm Jeff Ketchum, joined by Jason Sukamel, Anwar Richardson, Alex Dunlap. We are 2 days before Texas plays in a bowl game. That's right, Texas and Washington in the Alamo Bowl right around the corner. Do us a solid, like this video, subscribe to the channel. Do all those things that we want you to do. Share it with people that you love, like it's a late Christmas gift. And speaking of late Christmas gifts, this video brought to you by Dead Soxy. Go to deadsoxy.com. Get your 30% off discount by using the code word Orangebloods. I don't know about the rest of you guys. I did use both the Dead Soxy box and I gave away some Dead Soxy socks for Christmas as gifts. Anybody else get on the Dead Soxy giveaway as a present train for Christmas?
I'm not giving those suckers away. I'm keeping them for myself, man.
I was going to say, selfish shit like that. I got mine's on right now. So
my mom literally said, "I want some of those socks." I'm like, "Nope, you better order your own."
Either we love the socks to wear, which we all do, or some of us aren't quite as stingy as the others. Guys, let's jump into Alamo Bowl discussion. It is 2 days away. I just want to get it. It's also, we're not quite a week removed from signing day, but it's hard not to look at Jason and think back to kind of just the scramble that we were on for a few days covering National Signing Day, the DeAndre Moore story the next day. I just want to get a reading of the room 2 days before the bowl game. Jason, I'll start with you. Your vibe, just where's your head at? Program-wise, recruiting-wise, like big picture, getting ready to go into this bowl game. Where is your head?
It has been these last, 5 days? Feel like it's been 3 weeks. We had signing day on Wednesday. DeAndre Moore thing hung around till Thursday night, right? Thursday night. Christmas Eve, Saturday, Christmas Sunday. Now we got bowl game stuff. I've been messaging with Cole Patterson, with our Orangebloods kind of co-recruiting guy, and he's supposed to be heading to Orlando. His flight on Southwest Airlines got canceled for the Under Armour All-American Bowl. So my head's kind of all over the place. I'm trying to mostly focus on the bowl game. That seems to be the most pressing thing right now. It's, like you said, a little more than 48 hours from as we sit here and do this broadcast. I'm working on the matchups, and we'll have those posted on Orangebloods. I'll probably post those tonight. I'll save those for tonight. But, I'm kind of slowly transitioning into bowl game mindset. Recruiting, last week was so hectic, but, we kind of put that to bed once signing day and Thursday came and went. We kind of put that to bed. I'll do the bowl game, and then I'll gear right back up for more recruiting stuff in Orlando and in San Antonio for the All-American Bowl for the next couple of weeks. But right now, as I sit here today, I'm kind of transitioning fully into bowl game mindset. Excited for that game on Thursday night.
Alex, kind of the same question to you. It is funny, though, as soon as Christmas ends, the bowl season just comes at you like a hurricane. I mean, it's like you're in this lull of you're almost out of the football season, but not quite. And then, bam, 4 days away, here's the game.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, man. It was like I wrote in my column yesterday because I was, as you guys know, out of town last week. So I didn't get to see Sarkisian's press conference. I always like to hear what the coach says about these guys because oftentimes there are preconceived notions that we might have about players in the class that we've just sort of taken to be true because that's the sort of way we characterize them or categorize them through the process. And then you hear the coach talking about it, and they just, there were a couple things that I thought Sark said that were pretty interesting. But in that column, something got brought up about the football game, and all of a sudden I was like, oh my God, there's a football game. There's a football game in 3 days. It's just, you're right, man. Just the Christmas and the early signing period, dude. It's like, it's being a parent, dude, it's like fog of war. You come into this week, things, the sky's kind of parted a little bit, and all of a sudden there's a football game to be played. So I'm like Jason. I'm just now starting to wrap my head around it, starting to figure out what this thing's going to look like, how Texas shapes up versus the opposition. I'll certainly be interested to see Jason's matchups column this evening.
Alex, real quick, you can't tell the audience that Steve Sarkisian said a couple of interesting things, and then just never share the interesting things real quickly, what were the interesting things that you heard in the delayed listen of the Sarkisian video?
I think, honestly, there's a bunch of just little things, right? Like Darren, when he talked about he talked about the 4 linebackers, in the class. One of them being Darren Gillette, which I just thought was interesting that he classified him along with 3 other guys, and Anthony Hill, Leonga, apparently Leonga Leifau. There's a G in that thing. I found that interesting. Yeah, like
oh. Liona is Leonga, and I was like, oh, okay, that's news to me. But...
Yeah, so Samaje Burrell, those guys are guys who we've all sort of thought, certainly great athletes. Maybe they could play the edge, but inside linebacker types, to hear Gillette sort of mentioned in that same category to me was really interesting. I mean, I had always had him in just a completely edge bucket. I'd never even considered him as an inside linebacker. Had you guys considered that at all? Is that something that you guys had thought about?
I think he's eventually playing at the edge.
I was told by his high school coach, I think I've said it on the Modcast, like they're going to start him at edge, but the ultimate goal is for him to eventually be an inside linebacker, which I was surprised to hear. But that was the exact word from the Texas coaches when they were recruiting.
That's the wrong kind of progression. You want to go from off ball and move down if you want to make if you're talking about what's going to make you the money. But I also thought it was interesting to hear just how displeased Sarkisian is with the current state of the wide receivers. I mean, it's like he just came out and said it. That to me was, it's kind of maybe a little bit of an indictment on the we started to hear this a little bit towards the end of the season about who is stepping up as the third wide receiver? Is it Brennan Thompson? Is it Savion Red? Like, who is that guy? Who's stepping up? Is it Casey Kane? Like, who is that guy? And he always said, we don't really have that guy. I think that he thinks some of these freshman wide receivers are going to these guys are going to come in and play. These dudes are going to come in and play. Cook is going to come in and play. So, I found that interesting. Off the top of my head, I guess those were kind of the 2 things. I can look back through my notes, and if we get back to this subject again about the recruiting class, I'm sure that I can kind of refresh a little bit about what I thought.
Anwar, you're in San Antonio. That's a beautiful hotel room that you were sitting in. You're on remote location from where you're usually situated because you're there. There's more press conference stuff today. We talked about on the Monday Overreaction show yesterday. Xavier Worthy will be on the podium today. So I came to you last because of all the 4 of us, you are the one definitely nose first into the Alamo Bowl story because you interviewed Kwiatkowski yesterday. You're going to get the OC today. Matter of fact, we should probably, Alex, if there's anything, it's Kyle Flood today, right?
Yes. It is. Yes.
Alex, he's good. This is like the only time Anwar is going to get to talk to Kyle Flood for the next 9 months. I don't know. They're August. Yeah. So almost 9 months. So maybe think about that while Anwar's talking and jot down a few things. Because if you're ever going to want to get your Kyle Flood questions answered, it better be today or it's going to be a long wait. Anwar, just in general, give me your state of the mind, state of the union 2 days before this game.
So funny. You said what I was thinking when I was listening to Jason, Alex talk. They're like, yeah, I'm just kind of starting to wrap my head around this bowl game. I'm like, bitch, I'm in a hotel. What are you guys talking about? They're like, yeah, I'm just starting to think about it. I'm like, man, I've been here since yesterday. And so I'm like, must be nice. But yeah, you're right. Yeah, I spent a lot of time talking to Pete Kwiatkowski yesterday off the podium. He spoke on the podium, and then they made him available off the podium. I have a lot of that stuff that's going to be in the war room, and it's so funny because one of the UT guys, PR people, said something to me afterwards. They said, "Hey, we noticed that you're talking to Pete, and you really didn't talk to a lot of the players." I was like, I didn't talk to any of those guys. I can get those guys back in February or so when you make them available. I'm not speaking to this guy until August, so I'm not leaving this guy's site. It's going to be the same thing for Kyle Flood. I will spend every inch of time that I can with them. So, for me, what's going forward, it's going to be interesting. Yesterday the big topic was Jalen Ford, and what he's going to do. And you and I talked about that a lot, Catch. I think the topic of today, the news of today, will be Xavier Worthy will have to get asked a question as relates to his future in 2023. I think it's a different answer that would be expected in this instance. I think when you ask Jalen Ford what his future is as relates to 2023, we're talking about a guy who's considering the college or the pros. As relates to Xavier, we're talking about a guy who's considering Texas or the transfer portal. I think that the mind shape and how you view that is totally different. Because Jalen Ford, you'd say, okay, cool, go pro, go support yourself. No one's going to say, okay, cool, go to whatever college, go to Oregon or USC or whatever the case may be and enjoy yourself and live your life. I think it's going to be a little bit different reaction going forward. So I think it's going to be very interesting for us to see what Xavier says today. And we have some other guys who are speaking, Catch, today that, I don't know will draw as much interest. Quinn will be speaking, Jatavian will be speaking, Jake Majors will be speaking, of course, Xavier. So, I don't know how much meat is on the bone with all those guys. I think Xavier, even though he's a man of few words, ends up kind of being what the big story of today is going to be.
Hey, Omar, I'm curious your prediction on Xavier. Do you think he's going to give the I'm just focused on the bowl game, I'm not worried about that answer? Or is he going to come out definitively and say, nope, I'm staying, I'm not planning on going anywhere? Do you think he's going to sidestep it, or do you think he'll actually...
I mean, if he sidesteps it, I think that becomes a bigger story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if
he's not going to say that he's leaving.
Sure,
we know that. We know that, right?
It's either going to be on
that would be crazy.
Or like, hey, I haven't even thought of it. I've been so focused on the bowl game. He's going to give a non-answer.
I mean, he's, first of all, Xavier does catch, and I can tell he doesn't talk a lot. So, the sentences that he's going to give us is probably going to be 3 to 4 at most.
He ain't giving us War and Peace.
No, he's not the Jordan Whittington. I just want to talk and elaborate on things. But Jason, I think, again, if he says I'll think about it when the season's over, I don't think that rubs Texas fans the right way. Yeah. I don't think, because it's not like he's going pro. That means he's thinking about leaving the program. I think he's definitely, if he's gonna be on the podium today, and when he gets asked a question, I believe he's got to be the person that says, I will be in Texas in 2023. Yeah.
And they got to know that question's coming. So, as we kind of talk this out, I think you're right. I would think that would probably be the answer we'll get. But, hey, we'll see.
The question I have, Anwar, is whether or not we'll be 10 questions into the Xavier Worthy portion of the press conference. Are you going to be the one that has to ask the uncomfortable question again?
Unless Kirk Bowles just gets a hair up his ass and he decides I just want to start some shit today, probably it's going to be me.
So in your mind, start practicing how that question sounds.
I've already got it practiced. I've already practiced it out. I practiced in the mirror today. It's because it's going to be less is more. I
got to be honest. I'm also interested in Quinn today because, and I don't expect him to say anything crazy or anything, but I can see an now that he's signed, I could see someone saying, hey, what were your thoughts on Arch Manning signing? You know what I mean? Like, the thing that's really in my head about this game is that no matter what happens, this is the last game in this program before Arch Manning is in town. And we were joking about it beforehand that we had a couple of people who were like, can't believe you guys talked about Arch Manning as much as you did last week. And it's like, well, he literally was the number 1 player in the country who signed on signing day. Like, it's kind of in the wheelhouse at that point. Dude, I was here. So was Jason. Alex was younger. He wasn't yet on the beat yet, but he'll remember. The day Chris Sims showed up on campus, football in this town and the way it was perceived changed forever. I mean, Major Applewhite was the 1999 Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. And people were like, when is Chris Sims going to play? And it won't be exactly the same, but this program changes next month when Arch Manning shows up in town. And if you don't believe me, wait till spring football rolls around and ask yourself, what are people really going to want? I'm not talking about us four guys. I'm talking about if you're watching this right now, just do the exercise of what do you think people are going to want to know about when spring football starts? How did he look? How many reps did he get? Was he working with the ones or the twos? At which quarterback did, at whose expense did his reps come from? There's a lot that comes with Arch Manning showing up. He is, I think, regarded as more of the long-term future than anybody else. Mm-hmm. And this is the last game before that happens. And look, all I can tell you is, had I known what the Chris Sims experience would have looked like for 4 years before it happened, I think it would have shaped my brain about the way I would have interpreted everything that ever happened with Chris Sims when he arrived on campus. Now we know. If you lived that before, you kind of should have an idea of what having somebody of Arch Manning's magnitude in the program is going to do. And its impact on Quinn Ewers is just fascinating to me because, and I've written about this, we have gone from a place where it seemed like Quinn Ewers was going to be a two-and-done guy. The whole point of him going to Ohio State early in the first place was to, A, be able to take advantage of NIL opportunities immediately because the state of Texas and the UIL won't allow it. But B, it started his eligibility clock right away so that if he kicked as much ass as he thought he would, he could leave after the 2023 season. That feels far-fetched at this point until we start to see some of that NFL talent that's inside of him spew on a more regular basis. So I'm really intrigued by how Quinn plays in the bowl game. I don't know that it makes a big difference going into next year because there's so much of a larger sample size, at good or bad. I don't think you can completely look away from I guess what would be an 8-game sample size at this point. But the program will change in a couple of months. We will feel that change in the spring. It'll definitely be crazy by the fall. So everything that we've felt about the Steve Sarkisian era so far, it just changes as soon as these guys start to get here in January. And I can't help but think about it in advance.
Well, Catch, I'll just say this. I think that probably, it seems like a real, no offense to Anwar about this. It feels like a real journo thing to ask. Somebody's going to ask, hey, Quinn, you were the number one recruit coming out of high school. Now you got Arch coming in. Have you talked to him at all about it? How do you plan to, you're going to help him through the process, there's probably certain things that you guys can relate regarding. I could see them asking something like that for a story or a feature that they're writing that would kind of maybe pull some information out about that situation. But to me, dude, I'm reading in the chat, and it looks like we have a couple super chats too. But this says it's this guy Nate's takes. He's saying it's a very different from Sims because Quinn has everybody as much talent as Arch. There are very few rational fans that want Arch starting in year one. I'm not saying that Arch needs to come in and start immediately, but to say that there's
wanted Quinn benched this year. You don't think they're going to want to?
Are you serious? There are very few rational fans I think that the rational fans are going to want the best player to start.
Yeah.
And if this is Quinn Ewers 2022 versus Arch Manning, you guys are absolutely crazy to think that Arch Manning is not going to have a major say in who the starting quarterback is for this football team. I mean, it's the number one quarterback in the country. It's Arch Manning coming in here. And you're going to put him up against 2022 Quinn Ewers. This would better be 2023 Quinn Ewers, or else it's almost like a discussion that we shouldn't even be having. Right? It's almost a discussion not even worth having if we're talking 2022 Quinn Ewers versus the devil that you don't know, but you think you know, and a guy like Arch Manning.
Anwar, the other thing that goes into this conversation when we have this conversation, and it's crazy to think about because it's 2 seasons away, but the expectations when Arch Manning was recruited all the way through is that 2024, that's when really the expectations will be internally with the Manning family that Arch is playing and starting and doing that thing. And the season that Quinn had somewhat muddies just what the hell happens from here. Because before, there were talks of maybe he'll be fine with a red shirt and to give him a chance to acclimate himself. And then all it took was a little bit of not sure what's going on with Quinn. And suddenly Arch Manning was enrolling early and kind of changing the tone of the conversation. The fact that there's so many reactions to this is why I'm telling people, buckle up. Like, it's going to be different than for all of the Casey Thompson, Hudson Card, and then Hudson Card, Quinn Ewers thing. This thing's about to get put into maximum overdrive.
Well, yeah, and I would say this, and Robert, I'm going to chime in with you, and Jason will be happy to hear this. Though, we're glossing over Malik Murphy. We're just leaping over him to get to Arch, and I'm not ready to do that right now. The things that I'm hearing behind the scenes is Malik's going to be given every opportunity to compete for the job in 2023 with the opportunity to potentially win it. At this moment, Quinn hasn't done enough to just slam the door on the competition. It just hasn't, and I say this as a guy who's a Quinn fan, who stood up here, who told you defiantly catch. I never thought he'd have anything less than 150 QBR. So I say this as a person, who I say defiantly and ignorantly as well. But I'm willing to admit that. I'm willing to admit when I am wrong, and I was dead ass wrong. Quinn, it hasn't done enough. And so because he hasn't, I don't think you can go into 2023 with saying that this is particularly the guy. And, I think you got to go and give Malik a shot. I think I keep hearing behind the scenes that Sarkisian has been telling folks that he's very interested to see what Malik has had. When you hear Sarkisian talk, especially towards the latter part of this year, November and December, he is continually praising Malik for what he's done. Even I think even on signing day, we talked about when asked about like young guys, who did well in the practices. Once again, he mentions Malik as one of those guys. So I hear the Arch talk, but Steve Sarkisian, what we do know about him so far is Steve Sarkisian is dating until he finally finds the quarterback that he wants to be married to. And right now he dated, Hudson Card. He dated Quinn Ewers. He's dated Casey Thompson, but until he finds the person he's married to, I think he's going to keep going until he finds him.
Well, and he's the one that has told us it's going to be a competition in the spring. And really since the season started to come to an end, he's been pretty happy. He talked about, look, the passing game is what the running game used to be in college football. Those were his words. And that there's an expectation that you're just going to pass the ball well because in 2022 you have to pass the ball well. It has to be almost taken for granted that it's going to happen, and it didn't happen this year. And the passing game towards the end was something that they couldn't consistently lean on. And it's been Sarkisian that's pointed out our passing game not good enough. Period. And he's like, some of that's on the receivers and some of that's on the quarterbacks. And some of that's on me, the head coach, but the passing game's not good enough. So I think to Alex's point, if Quinn Ewers was second team all Big 12 this year, then, this isn't quite the conversation, because I think the focus would be on Arch redshirting, because why would you need him? You've got a guy who might be the best in the conference, but nobody goes into next year thinking that Quinn Ewers is going to be the best quarterback in the Big 12 sight unseen next season without us seeing some improvement on the field. So the whole conversation just gets to be really interesting. And I don't think it has a big impact on what ends up happening in 2023. Yet, of all the guys that we're having a conversation about, Quinn Ewers is the only one that gets to play in a bowl game as the starter. And whatever, he has an opportunity to throw for 300 plus yards and 3 touchdowns and put a flag down to say, I'm the starter. You guys need to know that. Just as likely as if it doesn't happen for him on Thursday, it's a reminder of just how steep that competition might be on War.
Hey, real quick, what if it's a carbon copy of 2020 in San Antonio and God forbid he gets hurt or he doesn't play well and Texas is behind. And,
Oh, wow.
And then Malik comes in and just blows the doors off. The
That's absolutely happening. Is it just
like, hell, then we got a whole other conversation.
And a lot of time to talk about it. A lot of time to
you
let
just
that
spoke
stew.
a weird thing into existence
man.
right there.
He spoke it out loud.
You just made that happen.
Hey, real quick, Onward. On that note, Javier's super chat. You don't get this in New Jersey. That's what what we're doing right now is a thing he can't get into New Jersey. We love talking shop for you. And we love that you love the community that we provide. Happy New Year to you as well.
Yeah, I don't think the Rutgers Modcast is popping like this one. So I'm just gonna throw that out there.
I'm sorry. So what did I just do? Oh, sorry. I'm trying to
back up.
There we go.
Oh,
so Anwar, you were about to speak.
No, I mean, just kind of Jason just threw a monkey wrench into what I was going to say, because when he threw out that scenario, I'm like, oh damn, you just said the quiet thing out loud. But it'll be interesting, because the question becomes, Catch, is there a performance that you can see from Quinn on Thursday that you would say, okay, let's just quiet this talk? Would you view it as Quinn is back, or would you view it as a one-off? Because the same thing when we talked about Casey in that bowl game, right? And Casey had such a good performance. And remember, I started talking to people the next day, and they're like, yeah, it's still going to be Hudson Card. Like, we never really seen this from this guy. So, is there a performance that you can see from Quinn that you would say, if he throws for, 300, 3 touchdowns, has a 170-something QBR, that would silence any Arch or Malik conversation?
It wouldn't for me. And I'm expecting him to play well and put up numbers in this game against one of the worst. Washington's in the bottom 25% in college football defending the pass. I mean, we've said this a few times because Texas has played a few teams. Its pass defense isn't great. That on paper, Texas should be able to exploit Washington's weaknesses, because everybody that Washington has played has basically exploited this weakness. It does. So I'm expecting a big game. It won't change it for me, because it will be a one-off. There literally is no other performance since October that you could tie it together with and say, this is the Quinn Ewers experience. But I think fans are fans. Fan is short for fanatical. And there will be people who would take – all it would take is one performance. And they would then all be – and they'd be all in, but it won't be everybody. This will be a splintered fan base that follows the team for the next few years, because there will be Quinn guys, there will be Malik guys, there will be Arch guys, and it's an impossible conversation to run away from. It's the quarterback position. And this isn't like Case McCoy, Tyrone Swoops kind of a deal. This is 3 quarterbacks. And depending on where you had Malik Murphy, I thought Malik Murphy was a 5-star. Now, I know how he played as a junior that would make some people not think he was a 5-star, rivals among them. But from a talent standpoint, just throwing the football around, to me, he looks like a 5-star quarterback should. The other 2 guys were consensus number 1 overall players in the country. This is a different deal. And, there's a part of me that thinks we have, even those of us that live the major Chris Sims thing, and that still goes on today. I could start a thread on Chris Sims and Major Applewhite today, and that thing would have over 100 replies on Orangebloods.com. It'd go 5 pages. It'd have like 5,000 views. Jason would have to ban somebody because one person called the guy an idiot or worse. Like, it's been 2 decades, and that thing still does things to people. I'm just anticipating this. Like, this game just kind of rolled up on us, and it's like, oh yeah, there's the bowl game, and here we go. And I think there will be more tension and excitement and discussion and anticipation for future Texas football games, even if there's a fear of like, maybe it's a train wreck, and those are interesting too. I think Texas football just gets more interesting. Arch Manning will be talked about on game day, week 1 of the next football season. It's too big of a name. It's too important. It's royalty. Even if it's just to say he's not yet ready to play, Arch Manning's the kind of guy that's going to have his name spoken by the biggest national media people. And I'm just curious to see what it looks like. I'm ready to grab a hold and see what kind of ride we're in for. If we change and move into a different direction other than the quarterback position, let's go into the things we're most interested to see, non-quarterback edition. And everybody, I would assume Jonathan Brooks will go off the table early. Let's see if we can't make all of our answers a little different from the other. Let's see how many interesting things are in this game. Anwar, I went to you last, first time around. I'll go for you first this time around. And if you want to say Jonathan Brooks at the running back position, you can have the number 1 pick in the draft.
Well, now I feel like I'm cheating. Like if I take Jonathan Brooks, I feel like I'm taking the easy way out if I take Brooks.
It's one of the answers. Somebody has to say it.
All right. Well, I'll say it because I think I already know where Alex is going, and
okay.
I gotta and Jason's a wild card for me, so I'll say Brooks. I'm gonna write it. Because I think I know where Alex is going. By the way, Alex, are we good? You know, I threw some friendly fire at you in my column. Are we okay?
Oh, I saw. Oh yeah, man, we're good. That was actually fun. Yeah, that was actually hilarious, man.
Okay, good. Yeah, I just want to make sure I did.
Great.
I should usually when I go to joke with someone, I usually check in with them, but I didn't this time. So
no, it was Christmas Eve, so
yeah, I was like, I'll apologize, or I'll buy some drone product if I need to. Brooks will be interested for me, Catch, because you talk about guys who want to, you want to slam the door in a competition. He's got guys, behind him. He's got Cedric Baxter and of course Trey that's coming in, but Baxter would kind of be the big name there. I think if you're Brooks, you want to have the staff see you, in a big game, be able to go out and produce without the top 2 running backs. And so, you got Jaden Blue behind you, you got Baxter, coming in. That's probably a position that's going to be an open position come next year. Sarkisian talked about that on signing day, that he felt like, he could have 2 freshman running backs be able to contribute. And he kind of went back to the Lundell White, Reggie Bush time at USC when both of those guys contributed. So you can tell that he's not 100% saying like, this is my guy going into 2023. But, if Brooks goes out and has, a strong performance, at least he goes in, okay, he's the number 1 guy in the offseason. He gets the opportunity to work with the first team, and then he has that opportunity to grab the reins. So for me, Brooks is the guy that I'll be very curious, to see what happens, because if Brooks doesn't, perform well, or there's a struggle there, then it's all on Quinn. And it really is. Then you got to throw the ball 40 times a game to win. You may have to do it as it is, but you probably want to keep that Washington offense off the field. So Brooks is the guy for me.
Jason, what about you?
Well, there's not much on offense if we're not talking quarterbacks, and Brooks is the obvious headliner story for me. And self-proclaimed Jonathan Brooks fan from when he was in high school. I've always thought he was underrated, so I'm excited to see what he can do with his first full workload. So not really much on offense for me other than quarterback and Jonathan Brooks. So if I go defensively, I mean, how are they going to play at linebacker without Overshown? But just by and large, I want to see how this defense, or if this defense is able to contain Michael Penix Jr., the Washington quarterback, in that passing attack. Number 2 passer in the country in terms of yards this year. And I didn't realize it, but he's top, I think he's like 19th in pass efficiency. So he's a high volume guy, but also pretty efficient too. So I'm just curious to see if they can keep him in check. I don't think Washington faced many defenses like they're going to see from Texas. So, is Penix a property of just facing bad defenses, in the Pac-12, or is he a guy that is going to be able to do it against a pretty good Texas secondary? Interestingly, the Texas secondary, I was looking at the stats as I was breaking it down. I mean, I think Texas was like 90 something in 90th in pass defense in yards given up, 43rd in pass efficiency defense. So much better in efficiency, but in terms of total yards, Texas gave up a lot of yards. Washington throws for a ton of yards. So, something's got to give there. Is Texas going to be able to keep Michael Penix in check with that secondary? I guess that would be the thing I'm most interested to see on that side of the ball.
Mr. Dunlap.
Well, I have three things. So I'll just say them real quick. One is Jason just glossed over the Overshown thing, but who's going to line up? Who's going to line up next to Jalen Ford? Who's it going to be? At Sarkisian's press conference, he mentioned Maurice Blackwell, unsolicited, saying that he was looking good. Blackwell played 60 snaps this season. He only played 2 of those back at safety. So, they obviously like him.
Who do you think it's going to be, Alex? Who would you guess?
Well, it'd probably be Jet Bush for the first series, I would guess. But I think we'll probably see more Blackwell. It could it be David Benda? I think it might be Blackwell.
Didn't they put Tucker Dorsey into the Overshown spot when he missed the first half of it? Was the Oklahoma State
right, because Tucker Dorsey still has another game, right? He's gone. So yeah, I'm sorry, that's the correct answer. It'll be number 3. For some reason, I've been putting together these depth chart projections and stuff like that. So he's already out of my mind. He's already kind of out of my mind. Right. Okay, so yeah, him for sure. So that is not quite as interesting now that you mention it. The other right. The other thing is the other unsolicited mention, man, was Jamon Tapp, who has played 22 snaps this season. I think it was only versus ULM and UTSA that he got in. And I've been dying to see more of this guy. I've been dying to see any production off the edge, right? So Jamon Tapp, a dude who, impressed me a ton through what he was able to do at his he was at the San Antonio All-Star game, right, Jason? They had him.
I believe that's right.
They had him playing everywhere from safety to a bunch of kids couldn't show up because of COVID. They had him playing at every position. He's an athlete, dude.
The guy looks like $1 million. Yeah,
he does. And so just maybe seeing him, that Sark has been talking about him, how he's looked in bowl practices. It's not like there's much standing in the way between the defensive coordinator saying, hey, just let's get Tapp in there for a few snaps and see what he can do. And then just the other thing would be Cole Hudson. Is he completely healthy? And if he's not, totally 100%, could we get a game where we're going to be seeing, more DJ Campbell? Because DJ Campbell has looked better than Hudson in the small sample that we've had of him. He actually finally got up to 100 snaps there at the end. They were basically splitting time at the end of the season. Then Hudson gets hurt in that last game. DJ Campbell played the majority of snaps in that one. The thing about Campbell, he did give up a few TFLs this last year. And as far as his snaps per disruption allowed number, it's not that much better than Cole Hudson's. But just as far as his grades and what he's able to do whenever he's on, he's going to have some bad plays. But the upside, he's just dripping with upside, man. So I'd like to see a full game out of DJ Campbell, assuming they're trying to be careful with Cole Hudson. And even if they're not being careful with Cole Hudson, that whole right guard thing is something that we're going to be watching all spring, all during winter workouts, and maybe if we can get some kind of clue as to how that's looking now in the bowl game, is that the team's looking forward, into the next year with some of the play and some of the evaluation reps that they're going to get on tape in that game. It'd be interesting to see how that right guard split sort of looks.
I have an answer that's completely different than everything that you guys have said. So I'm pretty proud that the thing that I was going to bring up hasn't yet been said. But in the name, and I guess in the vein of what Jason said about the quarterback position and what happens if Malik Murphy were to have a Casey Thompson type moment, I feel like we know who Jonathan Brooks is. don't feel like we know who Jaden Blue is. Yet he's been a guy that's been getting some conversation as a guy that's standing out in bowl workouts. I think Sark mentioned him, but I've had a few people mention him as well. I think Anwar as well. Like we've had several Jaden Blue comments made to us. It seems to me that Jonathan Brooks will play the Bijan role. And it's quite possible that Jaden Blue could play the Roshan role in this game, which means we might get like a minimum of 5 to 7 carries for Jaden Blue in this game. Whereas we're all thinking that Jonathan Brooks could be something double that and then more. But what if in this game, Jaden Blue in his 5 or 7 opportunities busts off a big run, averages 9 yards per carry, or just – really makes a splash, maybe to the extent that he gets even more work than we think. Like maybe it ends up being more 50-50 than any of us could get if Blue were to get in and start just making an impact. If that happens, it feels like then with Cedric Baxter showing up in the spring, that ends up being a really interesting side story to the quarterbacks during the offseason. Who ends up being the guy at running back? Everybody's leaning towards Jonathan Brooks because in the moments that he's played, he's been, quite frankly, sensational for a lot of it. But what if Blue is sensational? What if he is the guy that has the big moment in the bowl game? And then you add CJ Baxter to the mix, and then it could make, again, the running back situation going into the fall really fascinating with regards to who's your A, who's your B, who's the guy that is getting third team reps. And then you start wondering what happens to that guy. It feels like Jaden Blue is a little bit like the Malik Murphy in this conversation because Jonathan Brooks is kind of the guy that everybody's expecting. And you've got Baxter is the shiny new toy that's about to show up, but I don't know. I don't know how good Jaden Blue is. So
He's good.
I know he is, but I don't know how good he is.
Right.
And I think in the bowl game, that may be a surprising thing that we learn a little bit more about. That, I don't know that he's a buzzword for many people going into this game, but once upon a time, Casey Thompson wasn't. In that Casey Thompson game, who was the wide receiver that caught that 65-yard touchdown pass from Casey? And he hadn't caught a ball all year. And then it was like, oh, who's that guy?
I don't remember.
70-something yards. But I don't.
It wasn't Marcus Washington, was it?
It wasn't Marcus Washington. It was one of the guys that transferred out pretty quickly after Sark showed up.
I can't believe I can't think of that.
Kelvontae Dixon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And it was like in the bowl game, before the bowl game, Kelvontae Dixon had been a nobody. And then in a flash, in that one moment, it was like, oh, who's this guy? I wonder if what's that, Jason?
73-yard touchdown to Kelvontae in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. So I wonder if there's a moment in this game where Jaden Blue has that kind of moment, and then how does that color the photo for what we think the running game might look like? Because I get a sense if he doesn't have a big moment, a lot of people are going to instinctively bump CJ Baxter in front of him in their mental depth chart of what they think the running back depth chart will immediately look like. And I'm not so sure that Blue should be so easily cast away, although I'm one of those people that thinks that CJ Baxter is going to play a lot less. So maybe I'm giving myself a lecture when not meaning to do so.
I would just tell people, Texas had Bijan Robinson and Roshan Johnson, this season, right? And like if the running back splits are anything like they were with those two guys, it was a 65-35 deal. It literally, I think it was 65. It's what 69. I'm sorry, 16. It's weird because they ran so many two running back sets, right? So this equals out to more than 100, but it was 69.84% of snaps for Bijan, 38.1% of snaps for Roshan. And so if they employ a platoon that's similar to that, I mean, we'll see. You'll see, blue probably 40% of the time. I mean, he's going to have some opportunities. And here's the other thing. It's being that it'll be Jonathan Brooks' first game is being featured. They might not want to give him that 70% Bijan role. Like this could be like a 50-50 deal. And I think people are going to ask, I see it now in the chat, right on cue. Somebody's asked about Keelan Robinson. I just don't see his role changing much. I think that what's going to happen with Keelan Robinson is it was amazing whenever I looked back. Do you realize that on 91% of his snaps last year, Keelan Robinson was one of two running backs in a game in specialty packages? On only 9% of his snaps last season was he the lone setback. They don't use him like that. So they see him as a specialty player. He's not going to come in and have whole series to himself where he's the lone setback, based on everything that we've seen so far. So I think with Keelan Robinson, we might see it, during the season, he played an average of 11.5% of the snaps per game. And I think that, probably in this game or maybe games moving forward into the future as we forecast, we could be looking at a bump up to like 15%, 20%. I don't see him becoming like a true 1B. He feels like more of a specialty player that they like using in that way. As Ketchum is apparently.
He was like, you know what, Alex? I don't give a damn about what you're talking about. Like, I'm out. Your analysis. Hey, but while I'm waiting for him to come back, Alex, I'm just kind of curious, though, is from a run perspective, though, then, well, I
don't know if you guys noticed it, but I had my light just started like discoing.
No, I didn't notice.
And it was driving me crazy, but as I was looking at the squares, it looked like I had paparazzi around me. So I had to fix the light. Sorry.
No worries.
I didn't abandon you, Alex. I was absolutely enthralled.
Onward. So were you just only doing a did you have a real question, or were you only
I did have a real question, actually, based off of what you were saying, and based off of your stats and analysis, is for either one of those guys, I'm assuming running on the left side of the line is going to be the best mode of success for either one, as opposed to going to the right side. Just kind of curious what your numbers showed.
I think that'll depend on whether or not if it's DJ Campbell, I'll run right all day. He's like on his small 101 snaps. He's basically, it was a small number of snaps, but he's kind of the best run blocker. I'm not sure if that would continue over the course of an entire season. Some of these guys have 780 snaps on the season, but yeah, man, if it's DJ Campbell over there on the right, I would certainly run that way. I also know that if we're talking about these guys who are, if in zone, running to the right, and then also if they run power, Hayden Connor, Kelvin Banks are really good on their feet. Christian Jones is a killer. Whenever he's blocking down, he can get his hands on you in a phone booth. So when they block down on this side, they can block down with Campbell. They can block down to make it easier on Majors, and then Christian Jones caves that side. You got two pretty fleet-footed dudes from the left that you can bring as pullers over there to the right. So I mean that would be I think the mode that I would find possibly to have the best success.
Guys, let's go into parting shots and wrap this bad boy up. We'll have content throughout the rest of the week as well. So those of you that are just joining in, I would suggest check out the Monday Overreaction show that we did yesterday with regards to parting shots. Jason, you got anything on top of the brain?
No, but all my kids and nieces and nephews that are staying here just left the house. So now it's suddenly quiet in my house. So don't have anything super dramatic. Had a great Christmas. Hope everybody else did, and looking forward to the bowl game. And I posted on our message board, on Orangebloods message board last week, Under Armour All-American Bowl practices start this week. And then we go January 1st. I'll be heading to San Antonio for Army Bowl practices. We're looking at a couple announcements there. I think Texas looks good to get a commitment at that Army, or it's not Army Bowl anymore. I'm sorry, the All-American Bowl down in San Antonio. So Like I said, kind of at the top of the Modcast, we got the bowl game Thursday, and then boom, we transition right back into recruiting pretty heavily for the next couple of weeks after that. So we'll have coverage of both those All-American games. Doesn't look like Cole will be able to get down to Orlando for the game if we were playing, but we'll have coverage. We'll have other rivals people down there to help us with some coverage from down in Orlando, and then we'll have boots on the ground in San Antonio for sure.
When in San Antonio, Jason, you know I love coming down for some of those practices.
The game is the 7th, Alex. They haven't released the practice schedule, but I think the first practice is January 2nd. But they haven't given us times and locations and all that stuff. But the game is January 7th.
Do I need to email that guy Gus or whatever his name is? I haven't been getting the emails from him for every announcement this year. I wonder if he kind of forgot about it. Here, are you still getting those things?
Oh yeah, like a billion.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, you need to email Gus if you want a press pass.
All right.
But yeah, Gus is a good dude. We'll take care of you.
Real quick, we had a late super chat entry, and I don't know what that
What are
is.
you doing?
I'm
Jason?
sorry. No, I was actually just looking. Have you guys seen the Austin airport right now?
Oh,
Just insane.
it's
I mean, dude, that is tilt. That is just the embodiment of the worst tilt you get. That's my parting shot. Thank God I didn't have any of this to deal with on my trip back from Las Vegas.
Southwest, I'm reading up the canceled whatever how many thousands of flights, and they're telling people they can't even rebook until after the New Year. So people are going to be stranded for over a week. I mean,
do you know where the Southwest kiosks are?
Yes.
Okay, and do you know where? Mm-hmm. Where the Southwest kiosks are? This line shows the line coming all the way back across, it's a spinning line, sort of there, right in front of the kiosks, right when you walk in from the where you get dropped off, right? But then it goes on that concourse that overlooks baggage claim, all the way back there to where like the American Airlines and all this stuff is, and all the way back to the far security on the other side.
It's not even worth being in line. I just throw my.
I was about to say, what would each of us do in that situation?
I would turn around and go home or wherever the hell else I was, and hope
I can tell you what my oldest son's mom did yesterday when she got there. Realized it was all crazy, and they were supposed to fly out on Southwest. She hopped in her car and started to drive to Georgia, and she's like, "I'm not dealing with this crap," and would not.
Yes.
And
I don't know if that's what I would do, but I would definitely be back at a hotel. Mm-hmm. Trying to figure out without standing in line what happens next.
Well, but a lot of those people might not be from Austin. They could be like just leaving from relatives' houses, or they could.
I'm going to the hotel. What are they going to tell you?
Yeah, you're gonna
you can go up there and have your Steve. Jason, you can channel your inner Steve Martin in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and you can get to the lady at the desk, and you can just read her the riot act with like tons of F-bombs. It ain't getting you home faster. It's not like, oh, you know what? After being told F you for the 600th time today, we're changing course. Your flight is now rescheduled. It's not going to happen. So why they're in line, I have no idea. None. What in the world could they do?
The problem is you can't get anything online. It's as far as booking is concerned, and so like in the customer service, like if you try to call, you've got nothing. So it's either I stand in line and maybe talk to a real person, or I'm just SOL for like days.
I'm in American, Delta, whatever's open. I'm like, what do you got? How soon? Yeah. When can I get there? Southwest is a sunken investment at this point. You worry about that afterwards. Ain't nothing you can do now.
I'm getting rid of my Southwest credit card. I'm going to change it to American Express. Like the company's not as good as it's just my dad would only fly Southwest. I think it was a different era. I don't know if they have new ownership or something like that, or what it, I had a lot of brand loyalty to them. I got so many miles, but it's like, man, it's like every time I hear about one of these issues now, it's always with damn Southwest. It's crazy. Anyway, that's my parting shot in my ring.
Fair enough. You said everybody was thinking it, Alex.
Yeah. Okay.
It's funny. We're in the middle of a show and like you're watching you're watching videos at the airport.
It was my friend who texted it to me. He's like, look at this.
Oh, you've got a friend who's there on site, huh?
Yeah.
No, God. Anwar, parting shot from San Antonio. What you got?
It's I got an interesting parting shot. Not like that. It's a self-reflective parting shot. So but what I'm going to say, like, I don't want the initial response, but to get to where I'm going to. So on Friday is my birthday, right? But it's not to say happy birthday. It's because I've turned 49 on Friday, which has me thinking about next year more than about this year. And I keep thinking about one more trip around the sun. And like my ass is actually 50 years old. It's hard to grasp. It's hard to put my head around. It's hard to think about what I want to do because I start thinking about, well, what do you want to do when you turn 50? Like, you should do something monumental. I'm like, well, my ass could be in San Antonio covering another damn bowl game when you turn 50. And I'm like, well, how depressing would that be to be like, here I am. I finally made it back in San Antonio. Like,
I will make a vow. I will pick up the slack for you next year if they're in San Antonio. I'll cover the team.
What about Houston?
Your 50th, brother.
What if they're at the Cheez-It Bowl?
Yeah. All right. I'll do it in Houston too. So yeah.
Can I get you to commit to anything other than like a CFP? How about that?
Maybe. We'll
Look at these.
Hey, Onward, you need to wait because you might find, who knows? Like, what if it was
You
New
might end
Orleans?
up in a great locale, like the Hawaii Bowl or something like that.
Well, if it was like New Orleans, then like me and El Presidente and Tom G, we could probably party it up and go like old school style. But yeah, so just thinking about.
I will say that the only reason I'm telling you that, I'm trying to be nice, but I turned 50 in April. My ass is going somewhere, so y'all better be covered for me.
Well, you had Jason posted a note in the vacation thread on Slack yesterday about, and I was thinking to myself, well, I don't want to cover the site because I want to go. I was thinking I haven't hung out with Jason like that in a long time, but I kind of want to be there for 50. Is Joe Allison going to be there?
No, it ain't the same as when you and I used to hang out. Not the same as it used to be, brother.
We need to get Joe Allison on that trip and turn it into The Hangover. Like, just
Joe, my famous buddy Joe, who's crazy as crazy gets. He turned 50 the day that Beard got arrested. That Monday morning, I texted him, "Happy Chris Beard arrest day."
So where are you going? Where are you going, Jason?
I think we'll probably just do a quick weekend trip to Vegas. It's always cheap and easy to get to Vegas, and you can't not have fun in Vegas, right? My wife's not a Vegas person, and like she asked me, she's like, "Do you want to do a guys trip?" And I'm kind of hijacking your parting thoughts, but
no,
do you want to do a guys? My wife's very weirdly encouraging. I don't know if I should be worried about that, but like, go do a guys trip. Go do it. Go do. I'm like, man, baby, I'm just fine if you and I just go to Vegas and gamble, eat some good food, have some hotel sex, and sleep in, and I'm happy.
Anwar, it reminds me of an Eddie Murphy Raw when he's talking about the guy who's encouraging his woman to go on a girls trip because he's thinking about like what he can do when she's gone, and yet when she's gone, she's hooking up with some dude on the beach named Dexter with a microphone swinging. Jason, go! It's okay.
Yes,
I'll be here.
Yeah, but cameras in his house or something.
Well, damn, Jason, you and I are going to be some old farts in 2023. That's awesome.
Yeah, we are, man. Well, I'm sorry I kind of took over your party.
You didn't take over. You didn't take over. That's part of it. Like I got one more to go, and then the next year is when it happens. So I'm looking forward to this one and celebrating this one, and then getting to the other one, and when all that entails. So I'm putting a year notice nudge on Kedge that says, I could miss a game, right? Because it is 50. Just laying the groundwork right now. That's all. That's my party.
What's going to end up happening? Quinn's going to miss the bowl game for some reason, and it'll be Arch Manning's first career start in the Alamo Bowl on his birthday.
And I will be there to cover it.
Yeah. Now, here's the deal. But if they end up being like undefeated and they're playing like in a CFP, then for sure, like I got no problems with that.
Actually, there will be Longhorn fans that say, just declare right now that you're not covering the playoff because they'll feel like the jinx is removed. So even if you don't mean it, speak it into existence. And then, if they were to make it and everybody's like, Anwar is not going to be there, they'll at that point be like, you can't work here anymore. They're only in the playoff because of you.
Listen, if Orangebloods fans feel like I'm a jinx, feel free to start a GoFundMe. Pay me for the next 10 years. Just raise up enough money. Get a collective together. Pay me for the next 10 years. I will sit back and watch you guys win championship out of championship and toast to you every single year. We could make that deal right freaking now.
You'll be like Larry Zonka with the Dolphins. Every time you watch a Texas game, you'll have a toast.
Yes.
You'll be like,
or Bobby Bonilla every year.
Yeah, amen to that.
Either one.
I don't really have a parting shot other than, sorry. Did I miss one super chat? I meant to go to this and I didn't. I'll just let this be my own personal parting shot because I have a very definitive take on this. If you can take any 3 years of any Texas running back in history, who do you take and why? It basically is asking not the three running backs.
Do we get to go back in those? Do we get to go back to that time, or what? Or do we go back to that time, or what?
I mean, there's only one answer here.
Well,
there's no other player in the history of college football that had the production of Ricky Williams as a junior and senior. He led the nation in rushing and scoring in back-to-back seasons and was pretty good as a sophomore as well. So I'm just going to take Ricky. Last 3 years, and I say that with all due respect to everybody else that would be in the conversation, but literally nobody's ever been better than Ricky Williams in his last 3 years of college football. Other than if somebody wanted to be like, and this wasn't an option, but if somebody was like, I'll just take Barry Sanders' only season, completely fair point. But I think I'd just take Ricky. And for those of you that even had, let me tell you what, I have to believe the RC didn't see enough of Ricky live.
Yeah, I mean, the reason why I ask is like, do we get to go back and live during that time? Do we because I figure there has to be something more to it than just that, because it's like, well, of course you're going to pick Ricky if you know what I mean.
Well, I would be like Jason and I would be in all of us, 3 of us would be in college, I think. Maybe Anwar would be I think even Anwar, both he and Jason are the same age essentially. Jason was in college, so we were all in college and you were in high school.
Yeah, right. I was later in high school. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not sure I want to go back.
I think I've told this story when Ricky broke the career rushing record on that long touchdown run against A&M, right? What an amazing moment. But I was at the game. This is long. I guess I was in college, right? So with Joe Allison, who we referenced earlier, and his dad, we drove up from Bay City and watched that game. And Ricky takes off and just makes that run that we've all seen and gets in the end zone. And I just yelled up. I go, "That's my roommate!" And everybody in the stands, the whole section just turned and looked at me. I don't know why I said it, dude. I just blurted out, "That's my roommate." The whole section just turned
like, damn, man, I didn't picture Ricky's roommate looking like that.
What are you doing up in the nosebleeds?
If you, Jason, if you go get the run, you let it play out long enough. I was in the end zone that he was running towards, and then after he scores the touchdowns, he runs across the end zone essentially back to the sideline. You can see my feet on the video. You can't see me, but you can see my calves and my feet. I'm on TV in that historical moment.
Yeah, good for you. Good for your feet.
Matter of fact, I may try to find it. I'll screenshot it and let everybody see where I was for Ricky's run. Because I was wearing shorts that day. That's how you know that they're my legs and my feet. All right. Well, look, on that note, that was fun. Thanks for the question, RC. There could only be one answer, but it was fun to talk about it. Thanks to the guys over at Dead Soxy. Go to deadsoxy.com. Use that promo code Orangebloods and get your 30% off for the gift. It's not too late. Some of you still owe some people some gifts. Use your 30% off to go get them some socks. They were popular gifts, and they were popular treats for everybody on this Orangebloods staff. Some of us gave some away because we wanted to be good people, and other people just kept them all because, They're greedy. Just
People who don't like to regift are greedy all of a sudden.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, look, for myself, Jason, Anwar, Alex, and of course Blake holding it down, reminded us of the super chats, producing the whole damn thing. You guys have a great next couple of days. Here's to Texas beating Washington in the bowl game, because 9-4 just looks a lot better than 8-5, even if it's just one game. Anyway, you guys take care of each other. Happy New Year's. We'll talk to you soon.